most damaging lah. And then if it happen, it will give high impact and most likely to occur. It falls under this quadrant, which is the most damaging. So by identifying what are the events that fall under each quadrant, the bank or any institution can plan on how frequent they should audit this area or activity. Okay, if they resonate to use resources to mitigate risk, how much will be spent. So most probably more focus will be used in mitigating risks that fall under the most damaging quadrant. Okay. So definition of risk management basically identify, manage, mitigate, control. Okay. So overall process that an institution follow to define business strategy risk to which it is exposed, quantify risk and understand and control the nature of risk it faces. The goal is to take corrective action to reduce the impact and likelihood so that the residual risk can be brought within the tolerable loss range. Okay. Contoh macam high risk, maybe activities in the treasury department. Okay. So less risk, maybe dress code. Sebab dress code pun kalau syariah compliant dia overall, even the dress code. But dress code, if it is not in compliance to sharia, still tolerable loss range, because it does not give high impact on the loss of sales, for example. Okay. A risk in financial institution can be classified into three. Risk that can be eliminated by setting policy, hedging, diversification and insurance. A risk that can be transferred by hedging, sales and insure. And risk that can be managed by setting policy, diversification and insure. Okay. Let's look at this 581. Okay. This one is on page 584. Okay. There are three important components used in risk management system. Three important components used in risk management system include the overview by the board and management, risk management process and internal control based on Basel and Bank Negara Malaysia 2001. Okay. The Islamic perspective on risk management. Okay, in Islam also highlight the importance of risk management. Okay, there are three risks from Islamic perspective: essential risk, which is inherent, necessary, and must be undertaken to reap the associated reward or profit. Prohibited risk and permissible risk. Okay, how can we relate risk management? Prophetic saying, tie the camel and then entrust it to God. Okay, so Islamic approach to risk management would be understand and control the cause of risk and then leave the final outcome to the will of God. Sama juga, maksudnya we tie the camel and entrust it to God. Entrust it to God so that the camel will we are not going to lose the camel. The camel will not run away because we already tie the camel. But we do not know what happened next, what happened later. So we entrust it to God. Usaha dulu and then tawakal. Sama juga macam kita belajar dan kita ambil exam. Usaha, kita belajar and then tawakal lah. Nak buat assignment, usaha, buat betul-betul and then submit dan tawakal lah. Jangan tak buat apa-apa and then tawakal je lah, apa nak jadi-jadi. Tak boleh macam tu. Okay. So, prophetic saying, tie the camel and then entrust it to God. Kita bertawakal tapi kita kena ada usaha dari yang datang dari kita. Okay. In conventional finance, the risk is transferred, for example, through debt-based financing. Nanti tidak ada profit sharing. The risk is borne by the borrower. Okay. But for Islamic finance, risk is shared. For example, musyarakah, they shared. Okay. Mudarabah pun shared. Okay. Loss is borne by the rabumai only, mudarabah. Unless there is negligence by the mudarib. Okay. So risk sharing. So risk by financial institution include financial risk and non-financial risk. Financial risk, for example, credit risk, market risk. Non-financial risk, example, operational risk, regulatory risk and legal risk. Okay. Regulatory risk ni maybe pressure for them to comply with the regulatory requirement. Okay. Mungkin the bank already effort to comply with all the requirement, but of course maybe there is a new requirement, new regulations come out, so they have to change the process and so on, so there is a risk. Okay, so when they plan or when they want to produce or develop a new product, the regulatory risk must be considered. Maybe there is a change. For example, before this, the bank used wadi'ah for saving and current account. Okay, and then the bank negara Malaysia issued or instructed that wadi'ah cannot be used for saving and current account, so they suggest to use tawarruk or qard. Okay, ataupun ada juga investment, so it depends. So that's why there is no, kalau kita dah buat presentation on Syariah contract, we can see that saving and current account ada yang menggunakan qard, ada yang menggunakan tawarruk murabahah, commodity murabahah. Okay. And then legal risk, of course, there is many process. It is more relate to legal requirement as compared to conventional. Sebab dia ada trading kan, dia ada sales and purchase dalam Islamic banking. Kalau conventional dia loan, so tidak sama lah untuk trade. Types of risk exposure, we are going to look further on these types of risk later. Okay. The unique risk profile and characteristic in Islamic financial institution, according to IFSB 1, Those are the list of risks that identified by IFSB. Okay, credit risk, equity investment risk, market risk, rate of return risk, displaced commercial risk, liquidity risk, operational, fiduciary, Sharia compliance, reputational risk. Okay. So which risk might occur, it depends on what types of Sharia contract used. Okay, that's why in order for you to understand this risk, you need to understand Sharia contract and how they apply to the product. Okay, so, ni semua kita dah belajar when in your first group assignment. So IFSB guiding principles of risk management. So this one refer to box 13.1, page 607. Okay. Ataupun sama ya. Ini adalah the guiding principles for risk management. Okay. So you dah tahu dah kalau Sharia governance before this, you are going to refer to Sharia governance policy. And then IFSB 10, IFSB 3. Ethics, you will refer to Code of Ethics IOV. Untuk risk management, the guiding principles is IFSB, Islamic Financial Services Board, issued in December 2005. Okay, these are the members. Okay. And the content here include general requirement, explanation, definition of credit risk, operational consideration, equity, investment risk, market risk, liquidity risk, rate of return risk, operational risk, and role of supervisory authority. These actually are similar to the box 13.1 in the textbook. Yeah? Kalau you read on this also, it is good. Yeah? Okay. Principle number 1, Islamic financial institution shall have in place a comprehensive risk management and reporting process, including appropriate board and senior management oversight to identify, measure, monitor, report and control relevant category of risk, and where appropriate to hold adequate capital against this risk. The process shall take into account appropriate steps to comply with Sharia rules and principles and to ensure the adequacy of relevant risk reporting to the supervisory authority. Okay, so they are the definition and principle. Okay. Ini general requirement. Okay, risk management process. IFR shall have a sound process. Sekejap ya, saya nak tengok. Of executing all elements of risk management. Okay, FI shall ensure adequate system of control with appropriate check and balance. FI shall ensure quality and timeliness of risk reporting available to regulatory authority. And then I shall make appropriate and timely disclosure of information to investment account holder. Maybe any disclosure in the annual report. Okay. So first is credit risk. Apakah definition credit risk? Okay, this is what being summarized lah in the slide. Okay, so you can read further by referring to the FSB guiding principles. Okay, ini yang I highlightkan tadi, FSB general requirement. The first principle is the general requirement for the board yang tadi I dah bacakan tadi. This include a regular review of the effectiveness of risk management activity and the board ensuring the existence of an effective management structure. Okay. Okay, sekejap ya. Okay, first, credit risk. Credit risk is based on specific product in relation to receivable, leases, and also applicable to profit sharing asset. Okay. FSB focuses on default, downgrading, and concentration risk related to credit risk. The principle includes the need to recognize the credit risk exposure arising from different stages in financing, and also to conduct an appropriate due diligence review on the financing product. The principle suggests remedial action in the case of financial distress of a counterparty, such as frequent contact with the counterparty, the use of debt scheduling. Okay, basically credit risk ni bila customer default, maksudnya customer dia fail to pay on time. Okay, installment dia miss the installment payment, so it is credit risk. That is what meant by credit risk.
Boleh tak saya pergi luar dalam sarang Malaysia? Jalan-jalan je. Pergi kat luar, jalan je.
Jalan pagar. Sekejap ya.
Tak, pergi jalan-jalan. Naik kereta tepi-tepi.
Okay. So how actually we want to avoid credit risk occur is the principle suggests remedial action in case of financial distress of the counterparty. Maksudnya kita selalu the bank frequent contact with the counterparty ataupun debt scheduling. Kalau dia tidak the borrower unable to pay on time according to the current schedule, they will do rescheduling, or debt scheduling. Okay, and then equity investment risk. The third principle is in relation to equity investment risk. Okay. The principles deal with the risk inherent in the equity instrument, which are held for investment purposes, in particular musyarakah and mudarabah. Okay, yang mana yang melibatkan investment, for example in musyarakah and mudarabah, it will occur equity investment risk. Okay. So on how they want to manage equity investment risk is by setting objective policy and procedures of investment that use profit sharing instrument, or there is also need to engage independent party to carry out audit and evaluation of the investment. For example, mudarabah. Mudarabah, Rabumal dia akan bagi capital kepada mudarib. Mudarib will manage the business. Okay. So there is investment risk occur when there will be underperformance of investment. So how actually Rabumal want to monitor the investment in mudarabah is by carry out audits. Dia akan pergi buat audit ke ataupun dia buat evaluation of the investment. So to avoid to reduce equity investment risk. Okay. The market risk exposure may occur at certain time throughout the Islamic financing product. Sebab in Islamic banking, they are asset-backed product, asset-backed transaction. So the risk exists in the case of tradable, marketable or leasable asset and off-balance sheet individual portfolio. Okay. For example, murabahah. Okay, murabahah used in car financing. So you dah tahu dah sepatutnya how actually to apply murabahah in car financing. Okay, let's say the bank, okay, appoint the customer to purchase the car, okay, and then the car owned by the bank, okay. Okay, suddenly customer tu tak jadi beli kereta tersebut. Okay, so the market risk occur. How? Sebab car tu sekarang dah jadi milik bank. Kalau tidak ada siapa yang beli, the value of the car might be reduced, the market price of the car might change. So bila dia jual, bila dah ada pembeli yang lain, bila dia jual, it will affect the selling price later on. So it will affect the profit gain from the murabahah vehicle financing. Is it clear? Ada yang tak? Okay. So how to reduce market risk is yang purple yang bawah ni adalah on how to mitigate ya. Sama juga macam slide yang sebelumnya. Yang purple tu untuk mitigate ya. There is a need to for the establishment of a sound and comprehensive market risk management process and information system that form a framework to assist in identifying market risk, providing guideline to govern risk-taking activity in different portfolio, providing strong management information for controlling, monitoring and reporting market risk exposure and performance. So market exposure, change of price tu mesti kena ada study lah on that. So that market risk can be reduced. Okay. And then liquidity risk. Liquidity risk ni of course lah kalau you dah belajar on how to calculate liquidity ratio and so on kan. It is very important risk to be focused on for Islamic banking ya, sebab okay, katakan bila kita dah deposit money dalam bank, the bank must make the money available at any time for the customer to withdraw. Katakan kita masuk account Al-Alfa in Bank Islam investment. Ya. Kita nak masuk duit, kita at any time when we want to withdraw our money, it is available. Okay. So it is very important for the bank to manage liquidity risk effectively. Okay. The concern is the two major type of fund provider. namely the current account holder and the unrestricted investment account holder. Yeah? Unrestricted means the bank can use the money to invest in any types of investment without consulting or informing the investment account holder. Okay, so for this fund provider, for current account holder and in unrestricted investment account holder who require a degree of liquidity to be maintained by the banks to meet their requirement for withdrawal. Kalau current account holder memang boleh keluarkan duit kan, samalah. Hence, the principles suggest that Islamic bank have a separate liquidity management framework for each category of current account and investment account. Okay, so Islamic bank should have in place a liquidity management policy. So macam mana dia nak manage liquidity risk ni is by having a good policy that covers a sound for measuring and monitoring liquidity and adequate system for monitoring and reporting liquidity exposure on periodic basis, adequate funding capacity, access to liquidity through fixed asset realization and through sale and leaseback arrangement, and a well-developed liquidity crisis management. Okay, this is liquidity risk. And then rate of return risk. The 6 principles in IFSB guiding principles for risk management. The 6th principle is in relation to the rate of return risk, including displaced commercial risk. Okay. The rate of return risk is a strategic risk issue, as the Islamic bank are responsible for managing the expectation of their investment account holder and their liability to the current account holder. Okay. So Islamic bank need to aware of the possible factor that give rise to the rate of return risk. For example, increase in benchmark rate may result in investment account holder having expectation of the higher rate of return. So Islamic bank also need to have appropriate system for identifying and measuring the factor that give rise to the rate of return risk. Okay. For example, sekejap ya, saya nak terangkan ini. Okay, katakan ini graf ya. Katakan ini adalah the benchmark rates. Okay. Ini adalah rate fixed rate ya. Katakan Islamic banking dia tetapkan ini rate yang dia akan bayar return kepada customer. Fix. Contohnya kalau fix ya. Okay, kalau benchmark rates tu dia akan naik, dia akan turun. Okay. Kalau benchmark rates tu rendah, Islamic bank masih lagi kena bayar fixed rate ni. Kalau benchmark tinggi, kalau konvensional dia akan dapat return tinggi lah. Tapi Islamic bank dia fix. Ini kalau yang guna fixed rate ya. So, the bank need to have appropriate system for increase in benchmark rate may result in investment account holder having expectations of the higher rate of return. Okay, so the bank have appropriate system for identifying and measuring the factor that give rise to the rate of return. Okay, so IFSB guideline encourage Islamic bank to use balanced sheet technique to minimize their exposure by using a few strategies, such as determining future profit ratio according to the expectation of market condition, or by developing new Sharia compliant instruments. So in order for the bank to manage rate of return risk, before dia tetapkan risk apa, yang rate berapa yang dia nak bayar kepada investor, further analysis must be done, okay? For example, to study on the expectations of market conditions and so on. Okay. For the purpose of managing displaced commercial risk, the guidelines suggest that the Islamic Bank develop and maintain the appropriate level of profit equalization reserve to provide risk mitigation. Okay, contoh, kalau benchmark rates dia lower than the fixed rate set by the bank, the bank still have to pay at their fixed rate. Kalau the benchmark rates is higher, the bank akan pay the rates lower. So profit yang dia dapat di sini, perbezaan tu, dia akan reserve. Itu dinamakan profit equalization reserve. Dia akan reserve untuk cover loss that might occur when the benchmark rate is lower than their rate of return. Okay, so dia menggunakan profit equalization reserve. However, dulu memang ada the use of profit equalization reserve, tapi Malaysia now dia dah bagi instruction for not using profit equalization reserve. So how they manage rate of return risk, okay, by using another measures. Okay. And then operational risk. Okay. The seventh principle is in relation to operational risk, which is not only the risk arising from failed or inadequate internal processes, people and system, but also include Sharia non-compliant and the failure of the Islamic Bank fiduciary responsibility. Okay. The guideline, which the FSB guideline, suggests that Islamic Bank consider the event that can affect their operation, for instance, failure in the internal process and Sharia non-compliance, a prudent and controlled environment for operational risk management, and periodic review to detect and address operational deficiencies are expected to be conducted. And there is a need to for independent audit, and then to ensure Sharia compliance, to perform Sharia compliant review. Okay. So operational risk ni macam basically the reason might be because of human error, the system operation dia tak follow kepada standard operating procedure. And then kalau risk of not complying to Sharia also fall under this operational risk. Maksudnya Sharia dan compliant risk dia jatuh di bawah kategori operational risk juga. So how actually they want to mitigate ataupun mengelakkan daripada berlakunya operational risk is by having, for example, audit, internal audit, external audit, and then for Sharia compliance audit, Sharia compliance risk, they will perform Sharia review and Sharia audit. Okay. Part 3 is risk that occur in specific Sharia contract. So at this point of time, we assume that all of you already know about murabahah, musyarakah, istisna, semua tu dah at your fingertips. Then only we can look at what risk that might occur for each Sharia contract. before we start with this, I think we will continue this in the next class. For today, I will only focus on the definitions of risk. Okay. Any question on what is risk management in Islamic?
No, Doctor.
Okay. So I think, thank you. I think that's all for today. Okay. You can have a look at the document. Familiar kan dengan dokumen ni. Ibaratnya kalau you baca ni pun okey lah. Ya? Sebab dalam slide tu hanyalah summary. And then in the next class tu, risks that occur in specific mode of financing actually relate to IFSB risk management principle for specific risks, page 604. Okay, I already share with you siapa yang tak ada textbook tu. Okay, this is only general guideline. Kalau dalam exam dia akan tanya spesifik lah on how to manage risk, credit risk ke, equity investment risk and so on. Okay, by referring to the principles. Okay, so thank you very much. InsyaAllah jumpa on Thursday. Okay, so Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.